Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Can you guys hear me now? I was like a deer in headlights. Welcome, you guys. Oh, this is the chat box. Oh, I guess I have to move myself. I didn't know that was a chat box there. How cool. Welcome to J is for Justice, you guys. Happy holidays. I'm all festive out here. Welcome. Glad to see you guys all here tonight. We have Bella Rose getting cozy over here. And I guess we got chat up on the screen too. Pretty cool. So I wanted to bring you guys in here tonight because I caught this podcast last night. This is the second podcast that I've seen of Dale's. This is Dale Carson. Dale Carson he's an ex-FBI agent. And he is a current lawyer in Jacksonville, Florida. So Dale is weighing in on the Idaho 4. And he had a lot of interesting things to say. This is about 16-minute podcast episode that he did. And there's a few things in here. There's actually another one that I want to go over at another time. But I figured we'd do one at a time. And this one, I want to just talk about a few of the points that he makes, get your guys' opinion as well, because I think he makes some really good points and kind of goes into like how things work when the FBI is involved in an investigation where the local PD is still head of the investigation and all those things, you know. And I've got the link to his podcast in the description of this video. And also the lovely mods that are here will be scrolling that through chat as well. So if you guys want to interrupt me, the best way to interrupt me is a super chat. And you're going to be surprised. We have a new super chat alert, which is going to be fun. So if you become a subscriber, a member, or a donator, which is super chat or whatnot, Santa will pop up and you're either on the naughty or the nice list. So you're going to find out here tonight at J is for Justice if you are on Santa's naughty list or the nice list. You'll find out. You will find out. So without further ado, thank you in advance for those who subscribe, become members, or super chat tonight. And I see a couple newbies. Someone said they are new. Where are they? Mama Fee, welcome, Mama. And welcome, Melissa B, Angel P, Irene, CR. And all you other reverters, Mike Santa, Sandman. Wait, what? We had our Christmas party last night and I forgot to remind everyone. So we're going to be doing a redo Tuesday night. So mark off next Tuesday at 7 p.m. on your calendars. Because we are going to be giving away more pairs of these. Oh, is CR going to be naughty or nice? Did we miss it? Did I ruin it with the socks? We can replay it. General Sorrow, I have seen you many, many times. But welcome. Okay, I'm missing. I didn't see if you were naughty or nice. So we're going to be giving away more of our member emoji socks next Tuesday. Red Stags. Hey, wait, what? So next Tuesday, 7 p.m., we're going to be doing some trivia. HJ has some good trivia for you guys. Among other things, we're going to be doing Q&As, ugly Christmas sweaters, etc., etc. So these are also for sale in the Teespring store. So I don't see our, let's see, let's replay that.
Ho, ho, ho.
I didn't see it. That's weird. Okay, so let's get right into it. I miss you too, Carrie. Good to see all of you. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's get into Dale. And he has a reporter that's there asking him questions, just so you know. And I will be pausing with commentary because if I don't, it's not fair use. So if you don't like my commentary, I suggest that you exit. That you exit the room now. Okay? Okay. Bye, Jennifer. Wait, hold on. Oh my goodness. It would help if I added my guest audio. Hold on. All right, here we go.
Idaho was, as far as we know today, there were 4 students killed. They were in an apartment that was 3 levels, and there were 2 rooms on each floor. And they were discovered about noon after a night of apparent partying, right? And they actually woke up, the downstairs neighbors who had not been slaughtered, woke up and discovered some tragedy.
This case has been getting a lot of national attention, and there's parts of this that are concerning to you about how this investigation has been going.
Well, that's exactly right. I think that small departments, which this is a 35-member department, which, by the way, is the number of investigators and street officers on most departments. Actually, it's probably less than 15 across the country for small departments.
So basically what he says right there is that the Moscow Police Department, even though it's a small town, it's not necessarily a small force. So, I mean, that kind of helps you understand that, you know, a lot of, I don't know. Law enforcement is just getting a lot of flack, like, oh, they're not doing anything and this and that. I just want you guys to better understand, as well as I want to better understand what their team is like, what it's like there, what's the environment, what's the culture.
But they don't have the training or expertise to manage what turns out to be a major crime scene. Now, when I was a cop in Miami, it wasn't unusual to have 4 people killed at a crime scene related to narcotics. Typically, they were shot, and that makes it a lot easier for the perpetrator because you're not involved with using a tool in order to inflict the damage.
And I believe.
And let me just say, this guy is an actual FBI agent, ex-FBI agent. I think he said he was an FBI agent for, I think it was at least 10 years. He's not someone who just worked on a committee or technical support for software that the FBI uses. He is an actual ex-FBI agent and a lawyer, a practicing lawyer. So credentials are there on this one.
Police department there, and they're actually the lead agency right now, and not the FBI, right?
Right. Well,
so kind of peel it back and sort of what's happening here.
Sure. Well, the FBI doesn't have any jurisdiction And the FBI, in its tradition, was there to assist local agencies and upgrade their talent so they could manage something like this. And so, but the Bureau now is involved in a whole host of things that go beyond what I used to do, because initially with the Bureau, we were trained as individual agents to handle all aspects of investigation, from fingerprinting, photograph, to collecting microscopic evidence, those kind of things we knew. But today, there's much more to it. There are the use of electronic devices to measure. There are three-dimensional cameras in order to store the information. So some of this is new. But I see in this particular agency a failure to understand the basics of crime scene investigation.
Okay, so I'm sure there's a number of things here. Let's start with, what are you seeing the largest issue right now?
Right. Well, the largest issue was they failed to expand the crime scene sufficiently. And so when they arrived, and this is partly not their fault, although fault is not really an issue here when I think about it.
Okay, so this part is really interesting. This is when he goes into getting the call that there was an unconscious person, set off the crime scene being contaminated from the word jump. So they didn't think they were walking into an active crime scene. I'm mad that Santa is shooting blanks tonight, you guys. Who else is upset about Santa shooting those blanks? I know I am. Thank you, Angel P, for being a rebirder for 4 months, and Merry Christmas to you as well.
Arrived, they were told that there is a person who is unresponsive. Well, how often
unresponsive.
do you think that a college police department gets a call that someone is not responsive? Well, probably pretty frequently, right? Because people are doing things that they wouldn't necessarily do if their mom was around, right? They're doing drugs, they're doing things, they're drinking excessively. So at least initially, you just think it's someone who's intoxicated and won't wake up. So you send one police unit. The police unit arrives, drives straight up the driveway, not recognizing that it's a crime scene that he's entering, and gets out of the car, walks in. Now, who else is in the house when that happens?
Who?
Think about it. All right, you're a young woman. You might call your mom, but you're certainly going to call your best friend or other people that you know who are in the area, right?
Right.
You know? So the police officer goes in, and this hasn't been widely reported, but I'm sure that this happened, and if you give it just a little bit of thought, you'll know it's accurate. There are 10 people in the apartment, right?
10?
Oh, sure, because they called people. People showed up when the police come in to go look at the person that's unresponsive. Do you think that officer said, now, I want all of you all to go downstairs, don't talk among yourselves, okay? Go downstairs and just wait for me. Don't come up here. You think that happened?
No.
No, because they're just following up, right?
So it makes sense. They're called out for an unresponsive person. They walk in. They don't know what they're walking into. And now they've contaminated a quadruple murder crime scene, but by no fault of their own. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Shell. Happy holidays.
There's a doorway, and there's somebody who apparently is unresponsive, and we don't know whether that's on the third floor or the second floor. So on the first floor, there was a gal and a guy. Second floor, 2 gals, right? So they're looking right behind and over the shoulder of the police officer who's going in to shake and wake. So you grab them, you shake them, right? You do their sternum, you rub it to try to wake them up, right? But of course, almost instantly, you determine that there's somebody else in the bed. You see the blood. You're on top of it. Now you can actually smell the iron in the blood. And
that part almost made me want to hurl. Smelling the iron in the blood, I can't even imagine. But this also is going to explain all the boxes that we saw come out of their things. You're going to find out why.
All of a sudden, he's by himself, right? It's probably not a 2-man unit. So he gets on his radio, which you would have to, in the olden years, you go to your car.
But now, of course.
But now you just call and you say, this is a problem, send some people. Well, I believe it's a Saturday afternoon. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
It's a Saturday afternoon. Now it's Saturday afternoon.
Right, but
there's
overnight.
there's nobody on duty, right? They're at lunch.
Someone has to be on duty.
Well, yeah, but you might run 1 or 2 units. My point is, there's not a group of people, a squad, a brigade of people who can suddenly show up. Because what needed to happen was you run all those people out of the house, right? You put them in individual squad cars so they're separated and can't talk to one another. Because the contamination of evidence also extends to interviews. So they're all passing information back and forth and talking, so they're contaminating their own individual stories. And they don't have the capacity to separate these potential witnesses.
So they didn't really know what they were in for when
That's
they
right.
got the call. And that's the first problem.
That is the first problem, being able to effectively assess it. But once you understand the nature of the problem, then you go, oh Lord, you call for backup. You need to expand the crime scene. Now, from what I have seen, the crime scene was very small. It was just around the house. You take a piece of tape that says caution, don't enter police, or whatever it says, and you string it around the house. But that's not.
And that's what they did. They didn't expand the crime scene until, I don't know how many days later. It could have even been a week. I don't remember. Ellie Bird, thank you for subscribing. Carrie, thank you so much for your super chat. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to my Roberters.
You, in a murder situation, how you protect a crime scene.
How do you?
Well, what you do is you expand it as far as physically possible. And that means a mile, if you can.
A mile?
Sure.
That's
Sure.
a lot of space.
That is a lot of space. But ordinarily for a department like Miami, that's fairly easy to do. Now, you can't block it all off, but you can put patrol units at every corner to watch for vehicles, people, those kinds
Checking
of things.
video.
That's right.
Going through the woods.
That's exactly right. So now what you do is you use all those units to draw it in closer from that mile out or the distance.
So when I'm listening to this, we didn't find out about the white car until later. Did they know about it early on? I don't know. But, a lot of these things, we don't know when the police discovered them. We just know when they were released to us.
And get a manageable crime scene, which is certainly not maybe a football field in length, but certainly 200 feet out from the house. Well, when you think about it, that makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
If you live in an area, where are you going to leave material and items? Well, within 100 feet of the house, 200 feet of the house, whatever it is. And that becomes of critical importance later, because now there's contamination to all of the crime scene that's external to that piece of yellow tape. And so when they begin the process of investigation, they go up, they find, and we don't know today the order of the discovery of the bodies. We don't know that. But we know 2 bodies were on the second floor. We know that 2 bodies were on the top floor. We don't know right then how they got into the house. We don't know those things. But evidently, based on what we do know, there weren't any doors that were kicked out of the frame. And that becomes important because there were coded locks on each of the doors. And there's some information that one of the fathers was there about a week before because there was a problem with the locks. And that tells us a couple of things. It tells us that why suddenly are they concerned about locks?
Right. Why all of a sudden was Xana's dad out there replacing locks? Good question.
What has happened in their environment that's made them concerned? Is it a concern for somebody who's actually in the apartments with them? That's possible, right? Externally, you wouldn't worry about somebody coming in through a locked door, which is on the bottom of the building, and coming up in because there's that initial level of protection. But then to have them work on your personal door says something about the people who are inside the house to me.
Right. Okay. So what do you guys think of this point? Not only was the front door lock replaced, but I don't know if all of the doors to the bedrooms were done or just Xana. So that is an interesting point. Why would, if you trusted everyone in your house, or was this double protection? And if so, why? Why would you need the protection of the front door being secure and your bedroom door being secure? It's really interesting to think about. So did someone in there, were they afraid of someone, like he said, externally being able to come in and breach? If they breached the front door, then that person would have extra protection on the second door? Did Xana's dad maybe find out how many people were going there and partying and were there maybe Labor Day weekend without their knowledge? But did he find that out and say, screw this? This is dangerous having this open or whatever. We don't know what prompted her dad to go there and do that. But we do know the cops were called back on Labor Day weekend and none of the people that lived in that house were there. None of the people that lived in that house were there on Labor Day weekend. And the cops were called for noise. So how do we know it's not because of that? That it was changed. I get it, Jennifer L. I get why they have them. I'm not questioning why. I'm saying why change them at this juncture. I totally understand having those locks, for sure. But why were they changed at this point in time? Seemingly right before a murder. Merry Christmas, Miss Sherry Tomlinson. Love you too. Right. And I'm not questioning doors being locked or being able to secure your stuff. What I'm questioning is why the change? Why the change now? Why would that be, you know? There had to be, like he said, something going on in their environment that prompted that change.
Right?
Were there any witnesses?
None.
How's
None.
that possible?
Well, it's possible because they haven't identified witnesses to us, the public. And when you are in a building like that, and remember, it's not one on top of the other, so it's staggered. So the noise is not necessarily going to penetrate down to this first floor where the only two potential witnesses would have been who were not killed.
So we're looking at 4 different units with three different units.
Bottom floor, but it's not bottom floor, second floor, third floor. It's bottom floor, second floor, third floor.
Each with their own locks.
In each room, there are 2 rooms on each floor, and each of those had separate locks.
And there's no sign of forced entry.
None.
And no one saw a thing or heard a thing.
No.
What's your first guess when you hear it? That kind of circumstance.
Well,
Okay, now he's going to start getting into his speculation here. And this is another thing I want to discuss and get your guys' thoughts on. So let's listen.
First guess would be that it was an intentional killing, that the people who were killed knew something that somebody didn't want the general public to know. That would be my first thought.
You think it's someone that they knew?
Well, that's my initial thought. Think of a mob hit.
No, someone that they knew. In other words, because the person didn't have to break in, it's someone that they already were familiar with or knew, and that was someone that was close to them to begin with. Right?
Okay, right. But the quickest way through all of this is a thing called Occam's razor, which means that the simplest line is probably the most reasonable, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not somebody who...
Right. That's exactly right. And that's true in 99% of the cases that we follow. Let's play his words again.
Close to them to begin with. Right?
Okay, right. But the quickest way through all of this is a thing called Occam's razor, which means that the simplest line is probably the most reasonable, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not somebody who has the codes. It's that maybe the front door was open, maybe the back sliding glass doors, which are notorious for not being able to secure properly.
Unless you use a broomstick.
That's right. You put a broomstick in there. It's Friday night.
Or you put stools in front of that door.
Saturday morning, the girls have been partying. They're back at the house. At least in the videos that we've seen of the 2 gals, they don't seem impaired particularly, right? I mean, they're not falling down and dying.
Well, I think Maddie was a lot more intoxicated than Kaylee. I didn't see any sign that Kaylee was intoxicated. I mean, was Maddie falling down? No. But she was staggering pretty good.
So did they go back to the rooms and simply go to bed without locking the doors? Is the front door open? I mean, we don't know those things, but that, in my mind, is more likely than the door's locked and somebody has the code and they enter the code and they go in. Because when you're outside a house trying to burglarize it, the longer you're outside, the more easily it is for external people, witnesses, to find you.
So it's possible, in your mind, that this is someone that knew the doors don't normally get locked.
Well, and it's a college town.
Or they know that these locks don't work.
Well,
unless they got fixed, like you said.
Either.
The father was
either. But when I look at this and analyze...
Okay, so he's assuming that maybe the locks didn't work, and that was why new ones were put on. If they never locked it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of this is speculation, of course, but... And no, Xana's dad has never explained anything because he's never even spoke, as far as I know.
I'm fairly comfortable that they would have come in through the sliding glass door, which is first floor, second floor. Sliding glass door here, third floor.
It seems like they're going through a lot of time and effort to be able to get these 4 specific people.
Right. And so
to your mind, that's some sort of hit.
Maybe they know something. Well, that was my first thought.
Right.
Okay. And then it progressed beyond that, as you'll see.
It doesn't feel random.
No, it's not. Definitely not random. And I think what we forget is that this is a group of young people who are, in my view, attractive young women. And
the interesting thing is, everybody thinks Kaylee was the target. I don't think Kaylee was the target. I don't know why, but something to me just tells me she was not the target, and I don't know why.
House now is glazed. There's glazings everywhere. There are windows. There's a sliding glass door. There are windows in all the bedrooms. Okay, and so it is almost. You've probably never been to Europe, where they have display windows, where they have individuals who are not entirely attired in the red light districts.
They have like
It's a display,
right?
Okay, this gets a little awkward because it is a little creepy. But he's talking about, like Amsterdam, where you pick your girl in the window. And he's kind of likening that to like a stalker watching them. Like they were on display for whoever walked past there.
Well, in my mind, those windows, which may have been covered at some time with an internal covering, a blind or a curtain, weren't always going to be that way, right? Because you want light coming into your room, and the downstairs didn't appear to have any cover over the sliding glass window at all. But you're not, in this era in this generation, they are less concerned about exposing themselves. And we see this normally in the way men and women attire themselves. I mean, we look at FTX and we see how he's dressed compared to other people on a stage.
Okay, this guy's kind of showing his age now. He's talked about the old school way of investigating, but now he's talking about how girls dress. And I've got news for this old man that back in the 90s, we wore exactly the same attire that Kaylee and Madison were wearing. Yeah, the other podcast he did was a little creepy too.
He's wearing running shoes and shorts and bushy hair and a t-shirt, right?
Let's even remember Steve Jobs. He just wore a black t-shirt and jeans.
So the generations are different.
Well, and always the lesson was, if a guy like that, dressed like that, comes into the car dealership, that's the one you want to try to sell a car
Well,
to.
today, but not formally.
No,
right?
that's the rich guy who doesn't care.
That's right.
But I digress.
Yeah, but that's true. Yeah. Well, my point is merely that the world has changed. So you have this building that has all these windows on the back side of the third and second floor, okay? Then you have a stand of trees with kind of a ridge behind the house, because the house is sort of built into that ridge. And then beyond that, guess what you have? A fraternity house.
Okay.
Now, I will simply tell you that when I think this through...
Thank you, Georgia.
Well, those girls were probably really careful and about showing anything inside their rooms.
Thank you, Georgia. A woman is most at risk when trying to get out of a relationship. Very true. But with the fact that all 4 of them were just massacred, that is a true statement, but is this domestic?
At night when their rooms are illuminated, and I'm sure that the fraternity had a sergeant at arms who patrolled those windows that looked onto the girl's house and made
Listen
certain
to
that
this.
no one was up there looking at them in hopes that they might show more flesh than they intended to.
You don't believe they were preventing that?
No, in my mind,
The opposite.
the opposite. That they,
Where is he getting that from?
Is involved here.
well, let's talk about that.
So that's where he ends it. The last question.
And maybe even enjoying that process.
Are you suggesting someone with a fraternity is involved here?
Well, let's talk about that.
And that's where he ends it. So this was 1 day ago. So if you, here's his page here, and he goes on Nancy Grace. He's one of Nancy Grace's guests. Here's a little advice from him.
Hello, it's Dale Carson, attorney, Jacksonville, Florida, and the lovely Miss Shannon Paget, one of the members of the firm. We talked to you last video on why you shouldn't talk to the police if you're the target of a probe. They're going to call you and say, come on down, we just need to talk for a few minutes, it won't take long.
No, zip your lips. Don't answer any questions. It's a trap. They're going to act like they're your best friend to get you to say something. But just like a woman saying she's fine when she's angry, it ain't so.
Right.
Don't fall for it.
Right, and police officers are permitted under those circumstances
These
to lie
people,
to you.
I
There's no
can't.
penalty for doing that. So look, just slide across your driver's license, got your address on it, say, here's my information, I'm represented by counsel, I don't have anything to say, and end it there, and don't let them trick you, cajole you. You know, it's implied reciprocity. They're nice to you, you've got to be nice to them, you got to give them something, don't.
And don't give your phone number out.
No, that's exactly right. Why not? Well, because in each of our phones these days is a funny thing called location services, okay? You can see some of it there. And where I go frequent locations, if I were to tap on that, it drafts up a listing for all the places I've been within the last month. And if I tap on that, it'll give investigators a map of where I've been, how frequently. That's mega data. That didn't used to happen in phone systems, and we're just not
Wow.
aware of that.
And that's potential evidence.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
evidence. There's absolutely no question about it. If you say, well, I was in Detroit when that happened, they can look and see that your phone certainly wasn't in Detroit. So look, don't talk to the police. Certainly don't give them your cell phone number. And if you have questions concerning this or other matters, don't hesitate to contact Shannon or I. The initial consult's free, and we look forward to talking to you. www.dalecarsonlaw.com.
Yeah, right? This is 7 years ago though. So he's not reaching out to the killer. But I mean, yeah, some good advice. I mean, honestly. His other episode here.
We pull down her
Okay, this is where it gets a little
controls.
disturbing, a trigger warning, because he gets a little graphic. I don't know why men do this, because to women it's like creep town, dude. But hey, you know what? He's ex-FBI. I mean, I don't know what that's saying at this point. Like, we just found out that the CIA is probably involved in killing JFK. So who in the hell knows? Merry Christmas, Red Stags. Look, Red Stags is going to make Santa shoot a blank. All right, let's listen to a little bit of this other episode.
Well, let's talk about that. So initially I said a mile, right?
Yes.
Okay, then when you said, it's a
It's a
long
long
distance,
way
right?
mile. Yeah.
So necessarily when you look out of the back of that house, are there other windows that people occupy, rooms that people occupy back in that area that have a direct line of sight for those windows? Sure there are. Okay. So it's not unheard of today, and we see this with our own.
I think he really thinks that someone was watching them through that back window.
cell phones. It's not unheard of.
Or he
today
would
to
have
be able
been.
to amplify and magnify with a telephoto lens at some distance. When I was in the bureau, we had actual reverse. It was a lens that you look through this way. It hit a mirror. It's called reflective, and it hit back here into a
$5 get you a blank. But this dude, this reporter is looking at him like, dude, I don't want to hear how things were 50 fucking years ago. He likes to reminisce a lot about his tenure at the FBI.
cave area, and you could intensify over a mile really see something. You can read business cards at probably less than a mile in optimal conditions, because heat and weather, controls some of that, because it makes the light variable. And you can't, doesn't appear to be stable. My point is, you get on Amazon and you order a good lens, right? You order a really expensive pair of binoculars. You order a lens, and then today you can just download everything to a hard drive, right?
So let's say someone was spying on them. So what? How's that make someone a murderer?
Right. Okay, so what we see in sex offender cases, now remember I taught this, is that people become interested in the opposite sex. And we know that men, at least when I was teaching, were much more visually stimulated. Women tend to be stimulated in a different way. They read stories versus looking at images. There's a difference. So you look out in that area behind the house, and I could be wrong about this, but you look out in the area behind the house and you know that there's probably some visual stimulation occurring inside those two floors, right? Okay. That's my view. And I happen to know from having taught this that
visual stimulation. What?
Voyeurs can get in a virtual relationship with someone at a distance. I mean, it's not unusual to have a voyeur, which is beginning down the path to other offenses, sexual offenses, climb an 80-foot tree and sit in it for hours to wait for somebody to come to a window. Now, you would think, it's crazy. People wouldn't do that. But I'm telling you, they do. And the motivation for that visual stimulation is something that theorists and psychologists have looked at for many, many decades. And the reason there's so much energy put into this is not like raking a yard, okay? Because there's no biologic function raking the yard, okay? But if you're stimulating yourself sexually, there is a biologic imperative to do this. So you couple those two, the tendency to want to see visual stimulation along with a biologic need, and you amplify the energy. And we see this in all the sexual serial killers. I mean, they are into that sort of thing, and they magnify all their living energy into that, and that's why they get so good at it.
So you don't think there's a rejection involved here? You think this person, in your theory, never even met these girls?
Not directly, no. I could make an argument both ways.
Because I would think my first guess is, you get rejected, or you're somehow you can't connect with them.
Right, and that's what we've been talking about, like the rejection factor.
You're upset about it.
Right, they tell you bug off. I don't want to get
That's right, which I'm used to. And you want revenge, right? That guy wants revenge, and he's going to make them pay. But you're suggesting that's not necessarily the case.
Jerry?
Right. That is a possibility, to be sure, right? Because they have attractive women who are always trying to run off a guy who's hitting on them. I get that, okay? And that's certainly possibly a part.
Listen to how he talks about this. It's so appalling.
It's not necessarily the case here.
Right. That is a possibility, to be sure. Right? Because they have attractive women who are always trying to run off a guy who's hitting on them. I get that, okay? And that's certainly possibly a part of this equation.
Or I could give you a theory that the women have boyfriends and the guy's jealous and he's like, they're with these type of guys. They would never think of someone like me. And they start going through all these mental gymnastics in their head.
Right. With the overall objective of what?
The objective is, if they can't be with me, they're going to be with no one.
No, the objective is to get access to the girl, right?
Okay.
Oh my God. This guy, look at the reporter. He's all shamed. He's like, fuck, I got that wrong. This is becoming comical. Why does everything we watch, I try to be serious. I try to bring you guys some serious content, and it always turns out like this. Why does he have a tiger, or whatever that thing is, with its mouth open, hissing at us?
Would never think of someone like me, and they start going through all these mental gymnastics in their head.
Right. With the overall objective of what?
The objective is, if they can't be with me, they're going to be with no one.
No, the objective is to get access to the girl, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's the reason. It's a biologic imperative. Either way, it's a biologic imperative.
Or they think they do have access to the girl through these binoculars, let's say, and they see other guys, and like that guy's infringing upon their access now, and there's jealousy.
Sure.
Without them even knowing this other guy exists. In this theory.
In this theory. Okay. So let's look at it a little bit further. We know that it is the one gal who is getting ready to leave. In fact, all of her items are sitting around in boxes because she's going to leave.
Okay, this was really curious to me. So we saw all the boxes coming out, and I'm doing a live tomorrow I am going to show you all these photos. I have tons of still shots of everything that was going on there. And we will also do a suspect poll tomorrow. But, shit. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh my God, don't even talk about Chris Como. Blit.
She's moving out.
About Kaylee moving. So all these boxes that came out, they were from a moving company. They were, like a TV box, all this stuff. Maybe she was already packed up. Listen to what he says.
Oh, this is the best girlfriend to Maddie on the top floor, Madeline, okay? And she is getting ready to leave. She is also the victim in this case, and I'm intentionally not using names because I think that's imprudent, but those two girls are in the same bedroom because her bedroom may not even have a mattress in it, may not have a bed because she's getting ready to leave, right?
Where's she going?
She's just leaving to go away and do other things.
She's moving out?
Yeah.
He's like, she's just going away to do other things. Like, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know.
He does not know.
In it, may not have a bed because she's getting ready to leave,
Where's
right?
she going?
She's just leaving to go away and do other things.
She's moving out?
Yeah.
Okay, she's moving out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's moving out. So she's staying in this bedroom on the top third floor. Okay? That victim is the one who information is suggesting now had the most brutal wounds. Okay? We don't know whether the individual sliced from her throat to quit her from communicating. But I will simply tell you that the concept, and let me give you an example. I handled a homicide in the Atlanta Penitentiary where a young girl went in and she was helping the inmates with their new...
Trigger warning again with this guy. This reporter is over here like in Cringeville because he's got no clue what's going to come out of this dude's mouth next.
From communicating. But I will simply tell you that the concept, and let me give you an example. I handled a homicide in the Atlanta Penitentiary where a young girl went in and she was helping the inmates with their nutrition. And that's what she was doing. And she was like a volunteer, CNA, a person who would come in and sit down with the inmates and say, well, what is your meal like? And those sorts of things. So this young girl, who was 21 years of age, this was right before Thanksgiving. And she was there helping this one fellow. Well, this one fellow had what's known as a shiv. And that shiv is a manufactured knife out of a bed spring or a mail bag where they grind it down and make it reasonably sharp, but not very sharp.
This is a triggered story.
He's in there with her. The door is closed. In the room right
He's talking about a 21-year-old girl working in the prison.
To her, where she's providing this information to inmates, are the doctors, because it's in the infirmary. So the inmate, and I know this because this is what the inmate said after he killed her. He said, all right, now I've got to kill you.
Why?
All right? Because he tried to rape her unsuccessfully, right? Got her down on the floor. When he pulled down her stockings.
Okay, old man. Like this is what I mean. Look at the reporter. He's like, dude, cool it. Cool it, Mr. Department of Defense.
It was so swift.
Or Department of Justice.
Encapsulated her shoes, which were short-heeled pumps, right?
Okay, what does he mean by that? Why is he giving us a visual of stockings and short-heeled shoes on this victim?
Got her down on the floor.
Is it just me?
When he pulled down her stockings, pantyhose, it was so swift that he actually encapsulated her shoes, which were short-heeled pumps, right? And he tried to rape her, but as with many rapists, they're not able to achieve an erection or
oh my God, dude, come on.
They have a problem with that. That's part of the problem. And so he was not able to do that, but it was evident what he intended to do, and he'd be charged with the same thing. So he said, I've got to kill you now. So did she holler and shout, help, help, help? No.
Why not?
I don't know. But I'm just telling you, there's an example of someone who did not cry out. Okay? When I attended the autopsy, the injection of adrenaline, which you occasionally do to restart the heart, missed by about a centimeter. So people don't always holler out. It's not like in Hollywood where you see a movie and someone's hollering and going on. That's to get you as the viewer's attention that something horrible's happened, and it's not always the case that people shout out. So here's the point. She's going to leave. The one gal's going to leave. The other girl's staying. They're best friends. She gets really, really severely injured. Now, why did that happen? If it's true that she was targeted alone, she's certainly in a window constantly that plays to the back, and she's going to leave. Another point.
But he does have a point that there's a lot of creepers out there. Just because he's older and describing creep ass behavior doesn't mean he's a creeper. Maybe he just has seen his fair share of this type of person.
Is that it's starting to snow. Now that may seem like a minor event, but frankly, when there's a heavy snow on the ground, or any snow for that matter, you can see very easily where people walk, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's not true if there's no snow. So perhaps that was part of the trigger. She's leaving, it's starting to snow, and as a result, this individual who's in a virtual relationship as a voyeur is upset because he can see that she's going to leave. She's packing all her stuff up, right? So even if he doesn't know from information being passed around the neighborhood.
So we're assuming he in all this.
Absolutely. No.
Okay, so he's saying that there could have been a voyeur who was watching and saw that she was packing up. He doesn't want to use any names here, and he doesn't, but we all know who he's talking about.
No. One of the injuries to this young woman was her liver was cut open. Now, in my mind, that tells me it's somebody powerful. Okay, now you don't have to penetrate the abdomen too much to slice a liver, but of course, that shows a level of sophistication that the intent was not to injure or frighten these people, it was to kill them.
So how is this investigation falling short?
Well, all right, that area, that hillock right behind the house, was never adequately searched. And how do you adequately search it? Well, the way you search it is you go in, okay? First off, you cover all these areas. And we've seen this. At weddings, you frequently see the white tents. At crime scene investigations, you frequently see the white tents over the ground. It's there to preserve evidence. Because evidence is transitory, right? Something happens, it blows away, it gets covered up by something else. When you drive your patrol car up on the front, you may be destroying evidence, and you're not aware of it. So the thing to do is to cover those areas to prevent the weather from getting to them. So you've separated all your witnesses out that you have. You've individually interviewed them, so you've got a good detail on what they believe happened individually, and you can aggregate that to see which facts are good and which facts are bad. But they didn't do that. And then the investigation didn't encompass that hillock right behind the house. And clearly, that was the simplest way into the house.
I think he's talking about his example of the girl in the prison. She was slashed at her liver, not any of the Idaho 4.
The front door. Then it's very simple to go. If that sliding glass door is opened or jammed or whatever, you go in right there. And if you look, somebody put evidence tape right on that, which you would never do. Because if you put the tape down, that's how you lift prints. Now, today it's slightly different, but when we used to lift prints, you take a brush, you take your print powder, and you...
Here he goes with the old school. The old school demonstration. I kind of like this guy, though. I can't lie. He's got some really valid points. And I've got to think that he's seen a lot of dirt bags and a lot of sick shit in his career.
Looking for it. So if you put tape, and to preserve it, you take a white card, you take tape, you put over the fingerprint, and you take it off and you put it right on there in the back of the card. You write location, time, and information. Now, probably they can do it with cameras now and some sort of ultraviolet lighting, but the point is, you never put tape on it because you ruin it.
Do you feel we're going to get...
So we're going to go over what he's talking about. All of these photos. I took still shots of the best photos that I could find. And we're going to talk about all these things that he's mentioning. I see you guys are saying something about a liver. I don't remember ever hearing that. But I don't think I've watched every one of Steve's interviews. He's done so many. I've tried to see them all, but obviously I haven't. So his point is saying this person wanted all of them dead. So like when we say, oh, maybe the couple got in the way, what he's saying is why the overkill on the people that just got in the way. It's such a puzzling case.
You think we're going to get an arrest here at some point?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Despite all the mistakes?
I do. I think we're going to get an arrest. The question is, can you get a conviction? But let me step back to how do you analyze that area on the hillock? You cover it, and then you take every bit of that ground. You search it with a metal detector, and you search it with a rake, and then you get all that material up, and you strain it, much like archaeologists do. Because you're looking for, here's what you're looking for. You're looking for a wallet, car keys.
A ring.
Yeah, a ring, a cell phone, all that kind of thing.
Any identifying piece
Sure.
of evidence.
Well, I've often handled burglary.
Why did he say a ring? Why did he say a ring? Is there a ring missing? No, it wasn't an inmate that got killed. She was working in the prison.
You find the burglar's wallet in the house that he burglarized. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's the kind of evidence. So when you teach evidence investigation, you got to protect yourself first. That's the first thing. So you make sure the bad guy's not there. The second thing you do is you protect the scene, right? You identify evidence, you protect evidence, and then you collect evidence. That's how that stream works. And so you can see that that's what has to be done. And in a house where there many people are constantly, and it's a place where there's going to be a lot of DNA and those kinds of things, how do you find the freshest DNA? Well,
Yeah.
there's an answer to that.
What's the answer?
If the heater's on, snowing, cool, heat on, where do you think the friable material goes?
Into the vent.
Into the filter.
It's close.
That's right.
I was
That
there.
was
I
close.
was
That's
like,
close.
yeah,
So you can take the filter out. You've got the friable means that it's broken down into small particles. When you have someone knifing somebody else, you're going to have that.
Particles are going to...
That's exactly right. Now, the theory is that this individual cut himself. I don't necessarily buy that. Now, in a normal
Okay, so he's talking about collecting the furnace filter. There'd be particles. Excuse me.
attack, one person, a fight in the street, maybe. But I don't think that happened here. I think this individual had some specific training. And it's not unusual, just let me tell you, it's not unusual to have individuals who train with knives. We see this frequently with incarcerated prisoners because that's the only way they can defend themselves. And they can hurt you instantly. And I have seen this happen over the years. I handled in Miami years ago one brother killing another brother with a kitchen knife. And it was a horrific thing that I actually saw through the windshield of my car as I was responding to the scene. So these things happen instantly. They're bloody. And it's not something that takes a long period of time. And remember this, to kill one person with a knife in the middle of the night argues that they knew the person. Most murders are done by people who are known to one another. And you come into the room, you stab them in the neck, or you stab them, if you were a reader of novels, you stab them in the heart. But of course, people moving around, it's dark, arguably. We don't know today whether the lights were on or off in that room. But clearly you had to have some night vision gear or a light. And you don't want night vision gear that's going to poke all over the walls and out the windows, right?
Right.
So the accessibility of nighttime equipment is available now, night vision gear.
So the way you describe this, it's fairly sophisticated. You're looking at surveillance equipment, night vision gear.
Perhaps.
This wasn't just some schmo who just decided on a whim to do it, in your mind.
In my mind. And when we think about it further, I mean, he killed 4 people, okay? And really, in my mind, it's 2 murders, right? It's 2 murders here, 1 murder here with both these individuals, and then another murder up here. And they were created simultaneously. I mean, not simultaneously, but those 2 people were killed together, and then the other 2 people were killed together. And clearly there was some preparation, some planning that went into this.
I will venture to guess this. We are in Idaho here. There's a lot of hunting. So this could be somebody with experience with hunting, using equipment to hunt.
Okay,
deer.
which makes me think of the lady whose dog was skinned. Did you guys see her interview? Her dog was skinned like a deer, just like a deer. Her poor dog Buddy was skinned like you would if you were skinning a deer. Hello, Scott H. Merry Christmas, Scott H.
Bears, any other kind of animals.
I think that's true. I mean, people are not aware of this, but they hunt hogs with spears here in Florida. I mean, that's an example of the use of a knife to slaughter what ordinarily would be a dangerous animal.
To be an outdoorsman.
It could be.
His experience.
It could be, but it's someone familiar with the use of a knife. And I think that lends itself toward a military history, which was true with Danny Rowling. Danny was, there for PTSD in Gainesville. So, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. But what you're going to do is you're going to look for recent releases from prison.
Now, that is the guy that committed the murders at University of Florida in Gainesville. Danny Rowland.
Inmates who practice with knives. And you're going to look for individuals who are seeking medical care for PTSD or other things of that nature. So,
and maybe surveillance video of people who've come and gone from the premises in the past week.
Well, that's right. But there's very little. There's a dearth of video.
Or if you go through their phone records and you see in their emails and text messages and see who they've been in contact with.
Well, you'd absolutely
any
do that.
kind of problems that are arisen in the communications.
Right. Yeah, you would look at that. But this individual did something that is reasonably unheard of, which is to kill four people, at night, early in the morning. Everybody's asleep, apparently, and then evaporates. How does that happen? I mean, this is not something that...
someone who's trained.
It's someone who knows what they're doing. There's no question in my
mind
mind about that.
They knew their way out, and they knew how to get it done, and done quickly.
Yeah, that's right. And get away, and without detection. And I will tell you that being able to do that series of things effectively argues for some extreme training. And the other odd thing about this, from my perspective, knifing people, is that a replacement for sexually violating them? Well, possibly. It's a knife that's poking into them.
I cannot.
I don't see this as a serial sexual killer. I mean, he doesn't reach the level of a anger excitation rapist, which is a category where somebody goes in, they're a disorganized killer, and they just kill somebody, and they're not concerned about being caught. This is somebody who, with stealth, eliminated the lives of 4 people and was able to simply vanish. And that, in my mind, requires a lot of preparation and a lot of skill. It's not something that another student did, in my mind, but somebody who has a military or at least a hunting background.
Would you try to suffocate them or tie them up before doing it? Would that be a simpler, better way, so to speak, for them in this type of instance?
Well, if it were sexual, you would expect him to lasso one of them out of the group and sexually molest them. That's not what we see here, which leads me back to the thought that maybe they knew something or thought something that they shouldn't have, and they were targeted directly. But then we get back to the idea the back of that house is just open for view from the outside for not a week, not a month, but for a long period of time. And these are college students. They're living in a reasonably secure area, and there's locks on the doors. They feel safe in their bedrooms. And it's a horrible thing that women have to worry about someone who is a demon being somewhere in the world watching them. But I can tell you this, women generally, and I taught this for the FBI, women generally are not afraid, but for a long out and it's dark. They are worried about anybody approaching them. Whereas men typically are not that way. We are out and abroad at night, and we're not particularly worried about people coming up on us when we're young. You get older, you got to pay a little more attention.
Okay, so let's go now towards the conclusion here. And I asked you this previously, and let's come back to it. Do you think we'll see an arrest? And if we will, when do you think we'll see it? And then will we get a conviction?
Right. The conviction is pretty likely. I mean, I don't think there's any place in America that you could have a defendant that people didn't know about this. And here's the other problem.
Enough evidence too, right? Again, if the scene and the evidence has been tainted, would the right defense attorney be able to somehow get it thrown out?
Well, first off, you're arguing that the evidence would be tainted.
Possibly.
Possibly. Yeah. But they now have evidence. They may have blood from the individual who was there. Remember this, when you enter a crime scene or a scene, you enter a room, you're sloughing off DNA. You're sloughing it off, whether you want to or not. And when
this is interesting right here too. I had no idea that it worked like this. So this is interesting. Pay attention to this part.
You're carrying some evidence of that room, that location with you when you leave. So you bring evidence and you take evidence with you. So my point is simply this. They may have sufficient evidence to determine a given individual is in that room.
If they're able to make an arrest, what's going to be the one thing that's going to help them bring this man
to justice? Confession. I mean, that's always the solution, right?
But the evidence, what piece of evidence do you think is going to be able to tie them to this?
All right, if you can find the weapon that was used and it's got layers of blood on it, I don't know, but sometimes these individuals will take a trophy. They'll cut off a piece of something, particularly that's not unusual in women killings, where they cut off things that they want to use to remember and relive the circumstances. So if they found any of that evidence, clearly that connects the person. But absent that, then you're going to be relying on, there was apparently some defense struggle. And that means that nails, scrapings are going to have potential DNA on them, things of that nature, depending on how well prepared the individual was. Now, if they were well prepared, it's cold. They're going to be wearing a mask. It's difficult to scratch somebody. You wear gloves. I mean, there are all sorts of precautions that a bad criminal can take to avoid being connected with the crime.
You would think 4 women who are attacked would have some sort of evidence under their nails in the process of this going down.
To the extent that they...
And that's exactly why they bagged their hands. Remember, we read about that they put the bags over all the victims' hands to preserve that evidence.
Aware of what was transpiring.
Maybe they weren't.
Well, they were laying in a bed asleep
right.
when somebody starts knifing them. And the knifing doesn't make a lot of noise. It's certainly scuffling and makes noise. But as I pointed out earlier, simply because you're attacked and knifed doesn't mean you're going to shout out. I mean, you may be dreaming for all you know.
You may never wake up.
Well, that's exactly what apparently happened to some of these. So all of this ultimately will depend on putting the evidence together. In the Wayne Williams trial, we didn't have any of that DNA evidence. This was before all of that happened, right? This is back in '79 and the early '80s when all of these.
Here he goes again.
And so
I think that's what I like about him.
We put together hairs and fiber analysis. So he had a car, he had a house with a rug in it, he had this, he had that, and pretty soon you got 23 different fibers and analysis.
Right, and we've all watched Forensic Files, where, what he's talking about, the old episodes of Forensic Files.
On the victims that likely came from Wayne Williams' environment. Again, that's that microscopic evidence. So you would try to manage the case by putting this together. One of the problems that we've seen is the pressure from the media to get information, the pressure from the family to get information probably is deleterious to the overall operations of investigating a crime of this nature, simply because when you're interviewing people, trying to identify a suspect, you've now given away the fact that the
give it away now.
Well, if I say to you, I did this, bad confession, and I don't know that I cut the liver open, then I can eliminate that person, right? They're not really the person.
Let me play that again.
But today with DNA,
because he's telling us why the investigators don't want to tell these families anything, because now people know about that liver, and they want to keep things that only the killer would know close to the vest.
Cut open. Well,
all right, I'm going to slow this dude down for this part because I think this is important for us to remember.
Say to you, I did this, bad confession, and I don't know that I cut the liver open, then I can eliminate that person, right? They're not really the person. One girl's liver was cut open. Well, if I say to you, I did this, bad confession, and I don't know that I cut the liver open, then I can eliminate that person, right? They're not really the person. But today with DNA, we have a better and better chance to identify who the killer actually was. But that takes time. And it also takes some example to compare it to. Now, they do it through extended family alleles now, where you can actually see that somebody in that family group is connected. And that's when you find that the one person, the uncle, the son.
Right, like we see with all of this DNA stuff now. All right, you guys, get your votes in. And while you're voting, click that like button for me, please.
Has some mental problems or has some sexual perversion, and then you can connect the dots.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for the educating.
Yes, thank you so much, Dale Carson. I think that there's some really good points to be taken away from his podcast, so you guys should go subscribe. Not everything he has is on the Idaho 4, but he does have a few, and he's been on Nancy Grace, so he's got that on here as well. It looks like he's following the Aiden Fucci case, which he's been in solitary. His lawyer says he's going crazy, and they said we don't care. But here's another one, Nancy Grace. Yeah, there's actually quite a few with her that you can catch. So his link is in the description of this video and has probably been scrolling through chat. And tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be going through the crime scene photos that he was talking about. When he was comparing their the ways they do things now. So tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be redoing our members only Christmas party on Tuesday at 7 p.m. the 27th of December. I got a little effed up last night. We had a few of us in there. Thank you for those that were there. And just as another reminder, this is going to be one of our giveaways in our trivia games and such. These are the J is for Justice emoji socks. They are live right now in the Teespring store. And you can get yours or you can try to win them.
Did I ask them to do that?
So Tuesday, 7 p.m. You guys dance it out. I've got a little Christmas exit. Actually, you know what? I got a little video for you guys. Let's do a little fun one before we go. Just because you guys asked me to do that, I am going to play. I got a really good one tomorrow. Where is my video? Here we go. Enjoy, guys. See you tomorrow.
I didn't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life, and I didn't want to see anybody else either. I didn't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life, and I didn't want to see anybody else either.
Wait, I just had to come back. I didn't know what was playing, you guys. I'm like, what? What was hacked? What's going on? Okay, you guys, here we go. We're gonna get out of here for real this time. I love you guys. Bye.
I didn't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life, and I didn't want to see anybody else either.
Give it the fallout. Give it the fallout.
We're all gonna have so much fucking fun when they need plastic surgery to remove our goddamn smiles. You'll be whistling Symphony Doodah out of your assholes.